swing to would mean that it could be a very effective storehold of wealth. Then you have a digital currency that could be a very effective medium of exchange and storehold of wealth. So, in my opinion, some digital currencies are likely to succeed more or less based on that ability to do it. Then the question is, what happens? Okay, what happens is, do central banks allow that to happen? I really do believe it's possible to get a better form of money that central banks don't control. Okay, a better force of money that the central banks don't control, but then that's not yet happened. And we also have to, and so they've got to go through that evolutionary process. In order to go through that evolutionary process, first of all, governments have got to allow that to happen, which is to some extent a threat to them in terms of their power, and that's an issue. And then you have to also build the confidence in all of the components of it to say, okay, that's going to be effective because I won't I won't have problems holding it. So I think that digital currencies have have some element of potential, but there's
somehow creating short-term debt cycles, long-term debt cycles, this productivity growth. Does it amaze you that this whole thing works? That there's however many hundreds of millions of people in the United States, globally over 7 billion people, that this thing between individual transactions, it works.
Yeah, it amazes me. I go back and forth between being in it and then I think, like, how does a credit card work? How is that really possible? I'm still used to, I look up credit card, I put it on, the guy doesn't know me.
Yeah. It's all strangers.
Okay, we're making the digital entries. Is that really secure enough? And that kind of thing. And then it goes back and it goes this and it clears and it all happens. And what I marvel at that and those types of things is because of the capacity of the human mind to create abstractions that are true. You know, it's imagination, and then the ability to go from one level, and then if these things are true, then you go to the next level, and if those things are true, then you go to the next level, and all those miracles that we almost become common. It's like when I'm flying in a plane, or when I'm looking at all of the things that happen, when I get communications in the middle of, I don't know, Africa or Antarctica, and we're communicating in the ways where I see the face on my iPad of somebody, my grandkid, in someplace else, and I look at this and I say, wow, yes, it all amazes me.
So while being amazing, do you have a sense, the principle you described, that the whole thing is stable somehow also? Or is this, are we just lucky? So the principles that you described, are those describing a system that's stable, robust, and will remain so? Or is it a lucky accident of our early history?
My area of expertise is economics and markets, so I get down to like a real nitty-gritty. I can't tell you whether the plane is going to fall out of the sky because of its particular fundamentals. I don't know enough about that, but it happens over and over again, and so on. Without me knowing that, in the markets and the economy, that definition of money all of a sudden went out the window to gold, and then you, as I think you know, for that would be fine, even though you may not understand the algorithms, because if the thing's happening over and over again and you're not asking, the future would be the same. That appendicitis or whatever it is will be handled the same as the surgery. That's fine. However, what happens with AI is, for the most part, is it takes a lot of data and with a high enough sample size, and then it puts together its own algorithms. Okay, there are two ways you can come up with algorithms. You can either take your thinking and express them in algorithms, or you can say, put the data in and say, what is the algorithm? That's machine learning. And when you have machine learning, it'll give you equations which quite often are not understandable. If you wouldn't try to say, okay, now describe what it's telling you. It's very difficult to describe, and so they can escape understanding. And so it's very good for doing those things that can be done over and over again if you're watching and you're not taking that. But if the future is different from the